Hey everybody. Well, as you may have seen in the news today, I think it's the police commissioner or someone in the police has basically said that he believes that all police officers should be given tasers as a response to the raised threat of terrorism. Now, they asked for this a while ago, didn't they? I mean, I'm not entirely sure on any of this. I'm very interested to hear people's opinions on this. As I understand it, they were trying to get tasers for everyone a while back. And basically the answer was no. It's not needed. Which is an interesting line, but anyway, the first thing I want to do is I want to address a couple of logic things that have come to my mind about giving tasers to the police to counteract terrorism. Now, a taser, the X26 I believe it is that the police are given, has a range of 15 feet. Now, if you're taking on a terrorist with a gun, are you going to want to get within 15 feet of him? Are you going to be able to get within 15 feet of him before he shoots you? Not very likely, I don't think. And for the officers, I'm sure there's many officers who would happily, put themselves in that danger, because a lot of officers, as much as people give the police shit, at the end of the day, as what does Public Enemy say? Fuck the police, or who's stopping you from killing me? They do a good job, even though some cases they might do things that seem a bit questionable. But whatever, I'm not going to get into that one. Okay, so they're not very effective in that sense if someone's got a gun. Second problem, logical speaking wise, is when you shoot someone with a taser, they tense. So if your terrorist is stood there with a gun, hand on the trigger, and you shoot him, is he not very likely to start shooting uncontrollably? Obviously, if it was only a semi-auto rifle, then he's only going to get one shot off, and most likely, I assume, and then I don't know how it's going to go down, but But given that semi-auto rifles are as illegal as fully automatic ones in the UK, as I understand it, you can have a level 5 firearms certificate, but the chances of someone having a semi-auto AK-47, for instance, compared to a fully auto one, it's about the same. If they're doing it illegally, they're going to be doing it illegally. The difference between semi-auto and fully auto is not a difficult thing. It is literally, you can modify a semi-auto to a fully auto. As I understand it, you don't add things, you just have to file down sears and stuff. Anyway, don't ask me how I know this stuff. I learn stuff, it stays up in my brain. So there you go, that's another problem with it. And another one is, very often these terrorists have bombs. Now, if someone's got explosives strapped to them, the last thing I'd want to do is stick a good voltage through that to make it blow up when I'm only 15 feet away. You see my point here? It just seems very illogical that they're trying to rationalise and use terrorism as a reason to... What the fuck was that all about? What was I saying? Yeah, using terrorism as a bargaining chip or as a reasoning tool it seems to have become very rife in politics these days, because there is this natural thing within people to say, terrorism, do whatever you need to do to stop it, man. Stop that. Tasers, have them. I personally think the police should have tasers if they wish to have them. Now, to give you some perspective on this, my mum was in the police force in the 60s and the 70s. Remember, in the 60s and the 70s, not only were there knife crimes still, there were gun crimes, because guns were all over the country. And, okay, things have changed since then, but my mum, as a policewoman, was only allowed to have a handbag, a whistle, and a pair of handcuffs. She didn't have a truncheon, only the male officers had truncheons. Now, you might say, well, it was the 60s and 70s, things weren't as dangerous and stuff like that. My mum was chased through a Portsmouth street by a nutty woman with an axe, and all she had to defend herself was a handbag, a radio, and a whistle. Obviously, things have changed. Terrorism wasn't really a thing as such at that point. But there were criminals, and they would have defended themselves or, attacked police to get away with what they were trying to do. So as I say, I'm fully for the police having tasers if they wish. I'm actually fully for us to have a lot more armed officers. If my figures are correct, in the UK we only have 5,000 armed response units or armed response officers. 5,000, that's it! Someone made the suggestion that every police officer should have a level of firearms training. So in the case of some terrorist attack, they could have weapons at the stations, and at least the police would have a chance to be able to counteract it rather than waiting on the armed response unit, which might have to come from 100 miles away. Now obviously people are going to say, well, of course there's a problem with giving police tasers. Once you're given a taser, you're going to get tase happy. You're just going to want to to be able to use it on someone. And I think, yeah, there is a truth in there somewhere. But can you see what I'm saying here? It doesn't seem like that is a logical response to terrorism. I mean, the risks of terrorism, it's very small. I mean, yes, okay, it's big at the moment in the sense that compared to what it was before, but the overall risk is not really that high. And okay, even at the points that we are really high chances, it still does having every single police officer in the UK having a taser to counteract that, does that, or frontline officers, does that work to counteract that? And I can't see how that logic has come to. It doesn't seem to make any logical sense. As I say, I wouldn't want to shoot someone with a gun from 15 feet with a taser, and I wouldn't want to shoot someone who might have explosives on them from 15 feet with a taser. Of course, there'll be some Americans watching this that don't appreciate why we don't have armed officers. We don't have armed officers so much because we don't need armed officers so much, because we don't have the same sort of gun crime levels, because we don't have the guns. That's not to suggest, because I've had this argument, well, not argument, but discussion with people who've got me the wrong way. I'm not suggesting that you are, Neanderthal, stupid, gun crazy people, blah, blah, blah. It's just literally you are more likely to get shot when there's more guns around. It's easier for someone who has a has a mental issue, or someone who is opposed to the law. It's easier for them to access a gun. Now, you can get guns in the UK. There is no question about that. I am fully in the belief that if you're in London and you have money in your pocket and you can get in contact with the right people, you can get a gun in your pocket without too much trouble at all. I mean, let's not forget, the guns aren't illegal here. It's just harder to get the licensing, although obviously fully automatic aren't legal unless you have a very, very high firearms certificate, and then generally that's only if you're a weapons manufacturer or an armourer or something like that, where you have a good excuse to need that, as I understand it. Generally in the UK, shotguns, normal rifles, things like that aren't difficult to get hold of if you've got the right reasons and licensing and everything like that, and they do the background checks as well. So they are here, but not in the numbers. Where I see the taser coming into its own compared to CS spray and batons and things like that is knife crime. People with knives who might be threatening the police, tase them, drop them, not a problem. But that's not terrorism, is it? Yes, okay, there was an example of the guy that got killed. Was it Lee Rigby? Sorry if I got the name completely wrong. The soldier that was killed with a knife. Yep, it was completely true. That did happen, and that was a knife. And the police weren't there to start with, so I don't think they could have done a lot. And also, didn't that start with them running him over? As you all know, I'm a very, very logical and natural thinker, and I literally, the second they said that, I just started thinking, well, how does that counteract terrorism? If you want to have tasers for all the police to protect them in their day-to-day lives, as long as they've been given adequate training and they aren't taser happy, I have no issue with them having tasers. But justifying it with terrorism doesn't seem to follow. It's just, it's this day and age, the scaremongering and all of the things to do with terrorism that's going on. People are very easy to say yes to a solution for that than they are to say just give the police tasers so they can defend themselves better. Anyway, there you go. That's just my instant reaction to what I've heard. As I say, I'm not against them having tasers. I'm happy for it to happen. I do believe that they're justifying it using terrorism because they think this is a good way of getting it through when they wanted to get it through before and they weren't allowed to. I may be wrong on that fact. That is just an opinion, as everything I ever say is. But so, logical thinking can be very interesting sometimes. Anyway, hope you're all well. I'll catch you next time. Boop. Look at this. Now, stem cell research has got a lot of controversy and a lot of regulation holding it back. And it is going to be almost a wonder cure,
I literally was just talking about